Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer. I'm your host, Mark, and joining me today we got Gerald.
You couldn't just leave me hanging on part one. Of course, I had to come back for part two.
Yeah, you are begging, fanging for it, pleading. Please, Mark, please pick me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It seems
nice.
like it was just yesterday that I was here.
Yeah, and it will be Friday that you're here again with me, Gerald.
Ain't that something? It's been a busy week for Lorehammer.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You
We
can't
also
even
got.
say kicking or screaming this week because, like, you're coming back of your own choice. So
Yeah.
it's like
I'm the one that came back
now.
kicking and screaming, "Let me in!"
It's like the chaos has got its hooks in you now.
Yeah,
I know it's disconcerting.
We also got Lupercal joining us today.
Hey, dude, how you doing?
Very good. You've called in before, but have you been on a main episode before?
We did the bonus episode with the home ruler a few weeks back.
Okay, yeah. I did so many. I apologize, but
yeah, good.
Man, we're gonna have a fun episode of Chaos Unbound. Today is episode 43.5. I've never done a 0.5 before, but man, this topic just kind of really inspired me, and I ended up writing like 26 pages of notes, and last night we only got through about 15 of them. So tonight we're going to try to get through the other 10 on Chaos Unbound. So like I said, this is episode 43.5. So if you haven't listened to episode 43, it is essential because like we're going to pick it up right where we left off. But before we get into all that, let's just do some quick housekeeping. Lorehammer sells merchandise. You want to buy a t-shirt? Go buy a t-shirt, redbubble.com. You can go buy yourself all types of neat, nifty knickknacks, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. And Discord is a thing. If you're not part of our Discord, come join the link that I'm sure Mark has definitely linked on the episode description. And then you can also join the Patreon while you're at it for $2.50 per month. You can have ad-free versions because everyone hates ads. Don't be a liar. And then for $5, you get access to the live stream where you get to see us and our smiling faces and all the chicanery therein.
I'm going to be honest with you, man. Like, I get paid through ad revenue, and I don't know of a single person that's ever bought anything after they've listened to an ad. So I don't know where this money comes from. I'm happy I get it. I'll shout out these silly ads for them all day long. I don't get how it actually makes anyone any money, but maybe they don't know that yet. So we won't let them in on that secret.
I think it's based on viewership, though, isn't it? With like certain platforms, like the amount of people that actually see the ad versus how
for sure. But like if no one's buying product, like you could have 1 million people see your ad, but if no one's buying product, where does this money come from? You know, that's neither here nor there. Maybe that's bonus episode 97. Help Mark get rich, we'll call it. But that's neither here nor there. We see the chat room popping off. Come join the live stream. You can come chat in the side chat room there and maybe call in at the end of the show. Give us your thoughts on this episode. Let's get into it. Maybe we'll do a quick little recap because there's a couple things that, I write it down and then we record and a bunch more things just gets like pushed forward. And I think one of the big things that really got drove forward was the motivation is very important to what you're serving, who you're serving, why you're serving, all that, very important. And for Unbound, the very specific thing is ego. You serve your ego and use the raw powers of the warp to enhance yourself, to find that apotheosis, to make yourself the ultimate version of yourself. But it's all driven by that ego and maybe like fear that you're not good enough, but that's still ego, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Other things I kind of thought about, Court was raising some good points about demons and how do demons operate, and like Unbound is all about not being controlled. Even the demons are about not being controlled. So how do we have demons and stuff? And I think we came to the good spot where it's like you don't control them. They're like nature. They're like acts of nature, where if a certain spot reaches that critical mass of fear, whether it's due to I don't know, the planet's being invaded or they're running low on food, whatever they're afraid of, that's when these demons will actually start to manifest. And if you get enough of that raw energy, it starts to actually coalesce into these like little fear balls of demons that then manifest and go out. So it's not about like summoning them. In fact, you can't really summon them unless you do some crazy ritual where you terrorize a whole planet, and then maybe you might get lucky and they might show up, but it's not your.
I think that seems to be a Night Lords thing, really, doesn't it? You'd expect Night Lords to definitely be creating some of those fear-based shade demons.
Yeah, for sure. Couple other things about Unbound I mentioned very briefly. Unbound is all about using the raw powers of the warp for your own good. You don't serve any god. In fact, you despise those that hate gods. You might work alongside them, but you will betray them at your first chance that it makes you better. And you despise them still. Like, you might work alongside them, but every time they turn around, you're spitting at their feet, The emotions and stuff that feed into Chaos Unbound is fear, it's power, it's control, it's grief, it's loss, it's these dark primal emotions. I think I remember this one term, but I forget what it's called, but I remember the concept of it, where it's like a string of emotions, where it's like this emotion leads into this one, and it slowly gets darker and darker and darker as it progresses. I forget what that's called, but yeah. Their number, infinity sign, or 3, and their symbol, also the infinity sign, or what I thought was kind of neat during a chaos 8-pointed star, but instead of having every arrow going off in a straight direction, they're kind of like, this one's going off in a zigzag, this one's going straight, this one stops halfway. It's a random 8-bound star. So that'll be fun to kind of paint and stuff on some Liber Malleus models. But yeah, I think that's the recap. I think we're ready to kind of carry on into the second half of this episode, which is going to be about the mortal followers of Unbound.
I did have one more thing about the demons that I forgot to bring up yesterday, but I was also kind of drawing up this image of, there was this painter some decades ago, and dude was commissioned to actually do paintings of like the rebellion in heaven, like Lucifer's fall into hell and all that stuff. So he was creating different depictions of hell, and he included like these just very, I'll just say alien creatures, something that you would not recognize from anything either mythological or biblically. And their reasoning for including that was hell was something that already existed before Lucifer fell. So what if there was something there before the fallen angels and demons took over?
Oh, that's a creepy thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting, huh? We don't need to go down a whole theological discussion there, but that is quite the interesting thought of, yeah, I guess hell, if you believe in that, would have always been there pre-Lucifer, and what could have been there?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Somebody sent me, I could maybe pull up his name. They sent me this audiobook description of a demon that was not tied to any of the gods, and it was the demon of the deep water. He sent me this clip, and I'm going to play maybe a second of it, and you guys let me know if you can hear this. It's playing right now if you can hear it.
I've got nothing.
Okay, never mind. But basically, it was a 40K audiobook, and it was talking about this demon in the deep of the warp that predates all the other chaos gods, and all the other gods are aware of it, and they avoid it. And it's just this like depth, darkness. Yeah, they described it very cool. It was a great clip. I'll post it later on the Discord and the Imperial Ties channel, that little audio excerpt clip for everyone else to listen to. It's pretty cool. Yeah, but I think let's get into the cult of the Unbound.
The mortal followers of Chaos Unbound come from every corner of the galaxy. The start is warbands that reject the gods but still crave power. Renegade guardsmen who wield fear like a weapon. Beastmen drawn to the primal call of domination, and heretics of the Dark Mechanicum who see the warp as a code to be rewritten. There are fallen Imperial Knights who have merged with parasitic demons to become living engines of dread, corrupted titans that scream in silence as they walk, and even Xenos Psychers who cast off their species' creed to tap the sea directly. Cults of black-robed scholars, winged sorcerers, feral void tribes, and warp-bound hybrids march under the Unbound banner, not only out of belief, but shared ambition. These mortals do not pray or plead, they take. Each view the warp as a tool, a resource, or a realm to conquer, shaping its powers to their will instead of surrendering to it. They are bound not by species, creed, or blood, but by a singular drive to master fear, embrace darkness, and become something more than mortal.
Yeah, as you can see, all types can flock to Chaos Unbound. All it takes is just willpower and desire, really, and then you could go on that path yourself. The one type of person, though, that kind of will often go on this path, and you almost need to be to go on this path, is a psyker, though. It's not 100% necessary, but it's pretty critical. If you want to be able to tap into the raw energies of the warp, you have to be able to actually fucking tap into them. So I broke down what's interesting about Chaos Unbound, like I kind of said, is it can go a bunch of different ways. So when writing the followers, we have some loyalist Astartes in here, some renegades, some unknown legions. We obviously have traitor legions, some of the big 9 in there. But yeah, let's start off with the loyalist legions and then kind of slowly work our way into the depths of chaos. Some loyalist Astartes are drawn to the Unbound, not by heresy, but by blind ambition, a relentless drive to transcend mortality and reshape reality itself. Their disciplined minds see the warp's raw power as a tool to be mastered rather than as a curse to be feared. This dangerous pride often becomes their undoing as they walk the rager's edge between mastery and damnation. Yeah, you don't stay in this Unbound lane for long without getting corrupted, as we'll find out with the Fire Claws. Originally known as the Fire Claws, they are a loyalist Space Marine chapter born from the Ultramarines and Dark Angels gene seed, tasked with guarding the Eye of Terror's volatile borders. Their relentless campaigns alongside Imperial forces uncovered powerful demon artifacts, including the infamous demon sword wielded to slay the greater demon champion aboard a corrupted Space Hulk. This weapon was imbued with raw warp essence, marked the beginning of their transformation from loyal warriors to seekers of forbidden relics. Over decades, they abandoned strict Imperial dogma, embracing the chaotic energies of these artifacts to fuel their fight. Not in service to the gods, but to harness the warp itself as a tool of power. Their new identity as the Firehawks as the Relicators reflects a chapter devoted to mastering warp forces, walking a fine line between salvation and damnation. So we have this chapter who is loyalist at first, and they come across a demon weapon that's just, it doesn't sound like it's a full demon weapon. It sounds like it's more just like warp energy infused, but hard to say fully when it comes to the warp. And they realize it's a tool, man. It's all of a sudden killing orcs, it's killing Tyranids. Whoever wields it is just unstoppable on the battlefield. And they start thinking, we need some more of these bad boys. And then they go on their quest to go find more warp-tainted relics. But, the path of damnation is quick, and they do eventually kind of become full renegades, and they become known as the Relicators. The Relicators' pursuit of chaos artifacts as tools rather than objects of worship mirror the core tenet of Chaos Unbound, the mastery of the warp without submission to its gods. Their use of demon weapons reject the Imperial authority, and independent campaigns into the Eye of Terror mark their transformation of misguided loyalists to wielders of raw, unclaimed power. Though branded heretics and haunted to near extinction, the survivor Relicators may well have crossed the final threshold, becoming true Unbound. Warriors who seek to dominate chaos itself, not serve it. Yeah, very cool. This is an official chapter too, by the way. We've mentioned a bunch of times how this Chaos Unbound idea seems like it's already a concept. We can pull up all these different chapters that already walk this path, which is very cool.
Mm-hmm. Are they Firehawk or were they Firehawks or Fire Claws? Because I'm seeing both names in that section of the notes.
Yeah, so they actually had 3 names, and I decided to lose the Firehawks just because it got too confusing. So originally they were Firehawks, then they became the Fire Claws, and then they did one more transformation into the Relicators.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so the artifacts, we did the U-Voth episode, and they'll be talked about a little bit more in this episode at the end, but they have all these crazy warp artifacts and relics, and I can just imagine the Relicators, if they got their hands on those ones, they'd be quite pleased.
Very cool stuff.
Yeah, models, as always, I kind of wanted to be able to build this faction out on tabletop, or at least have some suggestions. So the models that I chose to use for them, I'm pulling up on the screen right now as I kind of buy a second of time. They're coming. There they are. Okay, so they are Dark Angels, and they are the inner circle. And I thought about doing this because of all those robes, kind of that like mysterious. They are Dark Angel successors as well, so you could keep some of the iconography if you wanted. And then, yeah, the swords you can just end up replacing with whatever manner of chaos weapons. Like you would want to buy this and a chaos box set of like Chosen or something like that comes with the most versatile amount of weapons, essentially, to slap on these guys.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What's not to love about the robed Space Marines?
Yeah. Yeah, they look tight. Yeah.
Well, so to that I ask, what about the we had briefly mentioned them in last episode. What about renegades? Those that said "fuck you, Imperium," but also didn't necessarily turn to chaos either. So they're kind of like that in between. So here's some renegade Astartes. Renegade Astartes who reject both the Imperium and the Chaos Gods often find a natural home in the creed of Chaos Unbound. Drawn by the purpose of power without servitude, these warbands seek to forge their own identity, own destiny, using the warp as a weapon and a tool rather than a master. Free from the dogma and divine chains, they shape themselves into warlords, monsters, or demigods by sheer force of will alone. And a perfect example for those still participate in the auctions is the renegade faction of the Liber Malice chapter. Yay.
Yeah, I had to, I tried to draw often from the sources, but also a lot of these I kind of made myself. Slip them in there. So the old Liber Malice, tell me about them.
Well, congratulations, because you're fulfilling the whole point, or the original point of Warhammer 40k. So the Liber Malice were once a proud Space Marine chapter driven by an insatiable thirst for forbidden knowledge and arcane secrets. After a slight to the chapter caused by Rebuke Gilliman and the Imperium shattered their faith and fractured their unity, igniting a brutal civil war within their ranks. In the aftermath, many survivors rejected allegiance to the Chaos Gods, instead turning inward to master the raw, unclaimed energies of the warp itself. This obsession with raw power and self-mastery drew them on the path of Chaos Unbound, where knowledge and willpower replaced worship and servitude. Now they roam as enigmatic sorcerers and shadow warriors, wielding the warp as a tool to reshape fate according to their own inscrutable designs. And then for more context, just listen to our bonus episode 41 on the Sundering, which is the event that split the chapter in half. The Unbound. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was a fun episode. What a plot twist. You guys ruined my chapter. Yeah, you voted them to chaos.
What would have ruined your chapter worse? Voting to chaos or actually having them be turned into Primaris Marines?
You guys spared my chapter. I changed my tune real quick on that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say you gave us 3 options, and one of those options you never ever wanted anyway. So
All right, so the Unbound. The Unbound are the severed soul of the Liber Malice, those who rejected the Imperium not to serve the Chaos Gods, but to wield the raw power of the warp for themselves. Before fleeing into the Maelstrom, they looted their chapter's deepest vaults, seizing ancient relics and Terminator armor to forge a new elite cloaked in fear and heretical glory. Now they hunt power and freedom alike, believing that true liberation begins only with the death of their loyalist kin. Oh boy. Which reminds me, I gotta finish my Liber Malleus lore to give that to you. I love Chaos Termi so much.
Yeah, they're so sweet. Their helmets with the tusks, man. Fucking tight.
Oh, keep on talking. I'm gonna grab something real quick.
Yeah, for sure. What I liked so much about the Liber Malleus is, they kind of felt betrayed. So then the natural thing is like they weren't bad guys. Like they weren't really slighted. Like they were kind of slighted. But they didn't want to go serve God, so they just kind of are now making their own path. And a lot of them definitely use warp powers now, these Unbound guys, and have slowly kind of been corrupted. If you want to buy these guys, we still have a couple. So, you can email me and you can get your own Liber Malleus. All right, Joe, what do you got for me?
All right. So a couple years ago, I had someone do a custom sculpt and then a 3D print of this custom Chaos Terminator.
Oh, yes.
And I specified like the Oliphant tusks and then like have him completely stand upright just to make him more menacing.
Yeah, that model's sick.
I like it.
Yeah. The big old cape and stuff.
Yeah, but he's gonna be painted as Black Legion because that's the main one of the main antagonists for my Void Wraiths chapter.
Okay. Which is your version of a Lorehammer chapter.
Yes.
Yeah.
My version of a Lorehammer chapter that you are very torn about because they're the ultimate. They're an Ultima founding chapter.
Life can't be perfect. We'll put it that way. Alphys Primus asks, would they have a Centurion variant? For the Liber Malleus, I'm assuming we're talking about still. No, I limited myself greatly when doing them because I specifically had some themes in mind. I always do very strong themes, like 1 or 2 units, you focus around them, and I decided to go with Terminators. So yeah, there's not much else in the Unbound. Like really, there's only 50 Unbound alive. There's not that much variance in it. And when you're fighting the Reforged, which are the loyalist version of the Liber Malleus, who are all wearing Terminator armor as well, you also need to be wearing the best gear to kind of match up. So it's kind of that, like everyone's just wearing Terminator armor and they're just going to blows until one side's left.
Yeah, it's kind of like the best of the best survived sort of thing, and like it's literally only the veterans of the Legion that still remain like alive. Everyone else either died or got captured or whatever happened to them, which it looks like the Discord's going quite well on writing lore for things like that, which is helping you flush it out a bit more, which is pretty great.
Yeah, pretty cool to see what people come up with. Man, some people have come up with some wild stuff. The one was just like this black hole shenanigans, and it was so interesting. I'm excited to share it. But I think we'll jump into Heretic Astartes next. We're getting deeper on that darkness scale where, now we're talking some true bad guys.
The ones that like to cause chaos no matter where they go.
Yeah.
So Heretic Astartes. Heretic Astartes embrace Chaos Unbound as a rejection of the gods' manipulations, seeking freedom from servitude to a single deity. They are hardened warriors who crave raw power unfiltered by fanaticism or doctrine. For them, unbound sorcery is liberation, a way to claim power on their own terms regardless of the cost. And one of the factions that we all know and love, especially Jax, the Night Lords, which were covered in episodes 190 to 193 when we looked at Kurz and the Night Lords.
Yeah, they were pretty fun, those episodes. There's a couple things like that I just absolutely hate. Like I hate talking about flaying people, it creeps me the fuck out. But also it's fun watching like what happens to somebody who just goes kind of wild with it.
Like,
It's a really good psychological study.
Yeah.
To put it like that.
It's kind of for me, it was kind of a bit of a weird concept when I first came across the Night Lords, that like someone who was essentially given their destiny from birth is then given visions the whole time that like if you can do 1,000 different things, but this is the way you really need to go. And it was like, that's gotta really, really mess with your psyche, and like even like your relationships with like the people that you're closest with. If you know that like in 20 years time they're going to betray you, like, do you trust them from day one, or do you trust them more because you know they're not going to betray you until that point? It's always two sides of a really weird coin.
Yeah, I like that thought of, you in that little vision of your death, just in the back of the room, you see your uncle or somebody like that, and you're like, what the fuck is he doing there?
Why is he not stopping it?
Why is he not helping? Is he a part of this? And then you grow your whole life, and these Primarchs are hundreds of years old, and he goes this whole time just going slowly more and more mental. Just, is this guy going to betray me? Is this guy going to be the one? Like, too much.
So the Night Lords embody the essence of Chaos Unbound more than any other legion. Wielding warp as a tool of pure terror rather than worship, their campaigns are built on fear, psychological warfare, and the exploitation of the dread. The very emotions that feed the Unbound's power, unlike other legions who serve gods, the Night Lords use the warp's raw energies to craft nightmares and control minds, making them natural heirs to the Unbound path. If there were a god to choose a legion for Unbound, it would be the Night Lords. For their devotion lies in domination through fear, not divine favor. Their brutal tactics and refusal to bow to any Chaos patron mark them as true masters of self-made power in the Immaterium.
I hate it that the Night Lords are perfect for Unbound. But they really are. Like, they really are the perfect, right down to their aesthetic. Like, we talked about how one of the kind of themes or imagery that I was always kind of drawing back to is gargoyles, bats, leathery wings. Is this Night Lords or what? Plus all the terror tactics. They don't serve any gods. They serve themselves for their own means. They're not even loyal to their brethren. It's all just, how do I get to become the most powerful?
And if you look at if you look at some of the 30k novels, there is a story in the Calf saga, which one of the Night Lords basically gets a demon sword, and his arrogance and belief in himself eventually like goes to the demon sword purposely betraying him and like basically corrupting his spirit and stealing him into the warp. And it kind of shows that whereas the Night Lords now see like truly like the visionary of Unbound, like the ones that are weaker in the chapter are still gonna fall to like the actual Chaos Gods or the demons that are sent by Chaos Gods. But it also shows that maybe these Unbound predators, because they're not controlled by a god, they could actually be even more controlling of the mortal that they get like entangled with.
Yeah. I came up with the Shrikeborn, which is a specific warband. So while the Night Lords are canon, we know this, the Shrikeborn are homebrew.
So the Shrikeborn are a Night Lord warband fully devoted to the path of Chaos Unbound. Having abandoned the pretense of worship to become pure harbingers of fear, bonded with parasitic wings and accompanied by flocks of warp-born gargoyles, they descend from the skies like nightmares. Their arrival marked by silence and shadow before the slaughter begins. They do not conquer for glory or gods. They sow terror as a weapon, feeding on dread and proving that fear itself is the truest form of power.
That's a fun statement. Fear itself is the truest form of power. Yeah, man. You can get a lot of people to do a lot of crazy things when they're afraid. They'll give up they'll give up the clothes off their back if they think it might help them, even if it won't. Like, it causes people to panic, make silly decisions. Like, fear is a hell of a thing. It just rots you. I do love this fucking Strikeborn warband and the imagery of them with their parasitic wings, which are, these like little mounts that attach to your body, and then like they control you. Sometimes you might control them. They might drop you if you're not powerful enough. But I love that image of all these guys flying around with their wings, surrounded by just a swirling swarm of gargoyles. And it's just like, you see these odd specks of blue amongst all the black, this midnight clad Night Lord. Very fun imagery. This kit, this kill team kit's incredible for the Night Lords. You'd definitely use them.
Really cool looking.
Yeah. It's so flavorful. All of them are so well done. There's a banner guy that's missing half his torso. That's pretty fun. That's pretty neat. Yeah.
They seem to get really creative with these kill teams as of late as well. Like like the new Tyrannid one looks amazing. It's like, why can't they just put this focus in 40K itself?
Yeah, very cool, these kill teams, man. Yeah, they're so good. I would I would buy the Nemesis Claw kill team, and then I would also buy a box of Warp Talons and maybe a box of Chaos Possess, just so you can get those wings. But honestly, I'd just third party those Chaos wings. It'd be cheaper that way. But basically, yeah, the Warp Talons, maybe you toss the odd jetpack on the odd guy who hasn't got his parasitic wings yet. You can get some of those Lightning Talons, a couple more special weapons and stuff to toss on, and really just go ham with the Strikeborn.
Maybe name 5 of them after the boroughs of New York City. That's a Carl
why
Squills
not?
reference. For those who are too young in the chat to understand that show. I have held that in for all of last episode and like half of this episode now.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, the Night Lords, man, they fit perfect, unfortunately. The next one that we'll talk about is the Alpha Legion. We haven't done an episode on them. We won't do one for a while. We got to get to them. Yeah. But it'll happen soon, TM. Now, the Night Lords, while the Night Lords are like fucking perfect for Unbound, Alpha Legion will give it like a 50 rating, hit or miss. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't with the Unbound. So the Alpha Legion's origins are as pragmatic manipulators aligned with the Unbound's rejection of divine worship in favor of using the warp as a resource. Initially, they operated as covert agents exploiting the warp's secrets without devotion, much like the Unbound ideal of mastery over raw power. However, over time, many of their cells and commanders have drifted deeper in traditional chaos worship, complicating their relationship with Unbound. They remain enigmatic and ambiguous, part users, part believers, making them a faction that could flirt with Unbound principles, but rarely commit fully. Their greatest asset is secrecy, and the Unbound's fluid, self-focused natures offers a fitting philosophy for such shadowy operatives. So when I think about the Night Lords, we don't want to go too deep in their rabbit hole of their lore, but basically they are loyalists who decide to join Chaos because they think if they remain loyalists, the galaxy will remain in this state of perpetual chaos. But if they join Chaos, then they can destroy the galaxy and then there'll be peace in the galaxy. Is the very fucking headliner high-level view of the Alpha Legion. So when they first started, they weren't really using powers of the warp. Like, they weren't serving the Chaos gods. They weren't doing that kind of stuff. They were just trying to bring down the Imperium and use some warp powers. But as time went on, I think more and more of them slowly actually fall to traditional chaos, to worshiping the gods and stuff. And you might get the odd Chaos Warlord who is from the Long War, who talked to Alfarius and Omergon back in the day and was like, oh, okay, so this is the plan. We're being super sneaky. Who might still know that original plan, but most of them don't now.
I don't even think Alfarius and Omegon knew what the original plan was.
Yeah. One had half the plan, and the other had the other half of the plan, and never did the two speak about it. So
I reserve most of my Alpha Legion comments for when we actually talk about it. But when I first got into the hobby and I went to my very first Warhammer store, and that's when I was looking into like the books and everything. And then of course, like the Primarch books were out on the shelf. Like the only one they had was Alfarius. And then I just happened to ask the store manager who his favorite Primarch was. And he said Alfarius. I'm like, why? And then he said, well, he's the most loyal Primarch. And I said, why is that?
Wait, questions.
Yeah, hold on a second. And then he gave me his reason why, and then I'll save that for the Alpha Legion episodes. But I was like, you're not wrong.
Interesting. Okay, well now,
yeah,
pique my curiosity and leave me high and dry. Nice.
I always thought it'd be funny between the two of them if it was like Alfarius was like, I'm going to do some sketchy shit, and then Omega was like, yeah, but I'm going to fuck with it. Like, you can do your sketchy shit, but like, I'm going to fuck with it just that little bit so it suits me more than it suits you.
Yeah. Everyone knows the best countries, the best businesses are run by two presidents or two CEOs, you know. Anytime you have two leaders at the top, it's perfect.
Oh, that shadowy hand in the background.
Yeah. So the warband that I came up with, the homebrew warband, is called the Shadow Hydra. The Shadow Hydra are an Alpha Legion warband that has fully embraced the Unbound Creed, forsaking gods in favor of mastering warp-enhanced warfare through calculated will. They specialize in modifying heavy weapons, las cannons, plasma cannons, and grav arms by binding raw warp energy into their power cores, creating devastating and unstable firepower that bends reality with every shot. Cloaked in secrecy and shadow, they strike without warning, reducing strongholds to molten ruin and vanishing before the fear, or the echo of fear, has faded. I love this concept of just overcharging.
Mm-hmm.
You know the plasma cannons when they get hot and explode in your hands? Just imagine that when they get hot with warp energy.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, you just opened up a little warp rift on our planet. Great.
instead of screaming, "Ow, shit, that burns," it's like, "Ah."
Yeah. Turns into chaos spawn.
I could also see like the comical side of it of like a little warp rift opening up on top of a plasma pistol and like a Nurgle demon like coming out a little bit and him like, no, wrong demon, slapping it back in. Like, no, get away, shoot.
Yeah. Crams it back into the energy coils. Get back in there.
You're meant to be feeding this. Go back. No.
Yeah.
That sounds like a very Alpha Legion thing to do. Honestly.
Yeah, I love it. The models I would use for these guys are just your standard Legionnaires, and then you'd buy Havocs and slap on those heavy weapons and stuff. And you'd want to stick to primarily las cannons, plasma cannons, which you'd need to get from Loyalist box sets, and grav arms, which also you'd need from Loyalist box sets, which might be a pain in the dick, but I think you can manage such things.
I'd be quite tempted as well that like in like the kit bashing sense, cutting like some of them off at the elbow and actually directly attaching the heavy weapon onto them.
Okay.
Sort of
Yeah.
Like they've used as if like they've used warp energy to fuse themselves with their weapon.
Yeah.
And then the warp energy is not just fueling the weapon, but also them.
I love
and
it.
like maybe having it that like their power armor is also bonded into like a trifecta circuit between them, the armor and the weapon, and like the more they use the weapon, the weaker the armor gets, or the slower they get to like keep the armor just as strong as it should be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You if you're writing characters for this too, you could almost start coming up with like ghosts in your gun, ghosts in your armor, that are talking back to you always. Like, yeah,
Like complete schizophrenia between the three.
Yeah.
Like, no, we want to go this way.
It's funny you mentioned that because one Alpha Legion tidbit is they were originally called the Ghost Legion.
Oh, really? I never knew that. Cool.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like how the Warhounds who became the World Eaters and the Dusk Raiders who became the Death Guard. Like their Alpha Legion's original name was the Ghost Legion.
Crazy.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Neat. Never heard that. Yeah. So the Alpha Legion. Let's give them a 50. Some of them definitely lean heavier into it. Most probably don't though. 50-50. Whatever. The next one we got is the Iron Warriors, and these guys. I don't know where they fit, man. They don't quite fit into Unbound fully. Oh yeah, that's sick, Gerald. You got more models up on the screen.
No,
Good old Perk.
Good old Perturabo
With his faux hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Quite proud of how this one turned out. But
Yeah,
for the Curse fanboys, don't worry. I got the Gargoyle himself.
Yeah, that's the
Yes.
ticket. Although I've got to admit, like, Perturabo's character, like, is quite easy to associate with, like, especially like if you, like, for instance, factory workers really would get it. Like, he gets given all the shitty jobs, none of the fucking praise, and then somebody else does something very fucking trivial and they get all the praise. Like,
Yeah.
bitch,
What? Yeah, man. Yeah, if you're a hard worker, all the boss does is just give you more work to do. If you don't complain ever, he just keeps slapping that work on you till you break.
Yeah, which is kind of like what's happening at, like, my workplace now. Like, 'cause obviously, with the price of everything going up and, like, they're trying to cut costs and stuff, so, like, they've, like, changed the engineering structure, and it's just absolute crazy at the moment.
Yikes.
Like, on Sunday night, I did 35,000 steps, which is the equivalency of, like, 17 mile. And that was just literally walking backward and forward between machines, fixing them, like, to help the engineers out. It's like...
So are you going to have your own Perturabo story arc then? Where
I think that's the way it's going.
Yeah, okay. Nice,
eventually, I'm just going to blow the place up and just walk away and just like, no, I'm done.
Well, keep us updated on that situation.
I'll record it and make some sort of masterpiece.
Yes.
This is what 40K inspired. Yeah, something like that.
Let's see here. Speaking of Perturabo, let me just make a quick change in the lineup to the Lorehammer Heresy.
Yeah, we got Lupercal now.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so
the
Perturabo
other half in here could take that. There's two in here at least.
Yeah, Perturabo and his Legion, they fall into this weird spot because they don't worship the Chaos Gods, and they don't also use warp power to enhance himself. For example, when one of them gets like a warp mutation, they cut it off and replace it with a bionic. So we got this Chaos group that doesn't really fall into any category technically.
That's very true.
You can always find the odd Iron Warrior who's going to worship a god and fall into Unbound and all that. But on a whole, yeah, they're kind of ideology-less.
It's kind of, in a way, it's like they're very suited for, like, to be a follower of Malice in a way. Like, because they detest the Chaos Gods enough that they would happily stab them in the face, and they don't want the mutations, and they literally rather go down the line of, like, amputation and conversion to iron. So you do have that, and then there is a weird spot with them in regards to being completely chaos aligned. So if you look at, like, the rise of the B series, there's a point where, like, a chapter of Imperial Fists directly work with Iron Warriors to fight off the Orcs, and then they go back to one of the Iron Warriors strongholds, and they're like, no, you're not touching them. I don't care if they're loyalists. Like, they're our friends. Go away. Like, so they're in a kind of a weird spot at that point in the storyline.
Yeah. Jumping back to what she said about Baby being Malal followers, Yeah, typically I say, yeah, if you think you're a Malal follower, you're not. Like true chaos is so hard to attain. But I do like your thought of the other aspect, the driving force, the motivating force of Malal is the destruction of the other chaos gods. So maybe if you kind of sneak into that aspect where you're trying to undermine chaos gods and destroy them, then you can fall into that aspect of Malal at least, which kind of is a fun little area to fall into.
It's like Cart's punk analogy on the previous episode. Like, yeah, you can like punk stuff and like do that sort of thing, but when you go in with the intention of it, you're no longer punk. You're conforming to an idea that you think punk is, which that is not punk.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of the same with like the whole Malice thing. Like, if you like, they don't want to be worshipped, and the second that you start worshipping them, you're no longer following what they truly want.
Yeah. So they fall into a little interesting spot. So let's learn a little bit more about the Iron Warriors here.
Absolutely. The Iron Warriors are warriors of siege and endurance, marked by a grim pragmatism that makes them wary of the Chaos God's fickle favors. Again, fickle favors. Because lest we forget, they may be Chaos Gods, they have awesome gifts. They're not nice beans.
They love monkey pawing you. Every chance they get, they're gonna monkey paw you. Oh, you want to fly, do ya? They push you off a skyscraper and they're like, "You're flying, you fuckhead!" And you just fall to your death. Like, you got your wish.
I mean, it's a simple concept. Really, all you do is just fall to the ground and pray you don't miss.
I have to laugh because like one of my friends tells like this monkey paw joke where he like the focus of the joke is this guy asks a genie to make his penis touch the floor, so the genie makes his legs disappear. So his penis is literally touching the floor.
Nice.
So like he gets his wish, but like because he wasn't specific with it, like you get what you're given.
You can't walk away from that kind of deal, though.
Nope.
Yikes.
Oh,
Zach says, but the sons of Malice sacrifice themselves to their god, fully expecting something happens after the 11 tributes. And that's another interesting thing about Malice is there's no self-preservation. So it's incredibly hard to maintain any type of Malice worship or cohesion because Unbound, it is all about you surviving and becoming more powerful, but that doesn't necessarily make the most chaos, and that's what Malal is. So that's a fun little thought there.
There's also something to look at that necessarily in that regards the sacrifices aren't like worship per se, but like maybe they're literally passing their soul energy on to Malal Malice to try and help the summoning or creation of them. But they're not worshipping them per se.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of like this Unbound is you're doing this for yourself. Undivided, you're doing it for all 4 Chaos Gods. And then Malal, Malice, or just what I guess that other group is just like, I'm doing this for chaos sake. Fuck everyone. Fuck you, Chaos Gods.
Yeah.
It's more like a unbridled chaos more than anything else. Like it's literally pure chaos for pure chaos sake, and taking things back to that original state where chaos just rules supreme, where there's no control, there's no conformity, and it's like, for instance, like the direct embodiment of anarchy. Like with there's everybody's equal, no hierarchy, no government, and everything's like essentially flat.
Yeah.
Even in the playing field. But we're getting a little off topic. So back to some very bitter Iron Warriors. They neither worship nor openly wield warp powers as the Unbound do, maintaining a hardened discipline against mutation and divine corruption. While they despise the gods and reject their influence, the Iron Warriors will ally with Chaos forces if it serves their brutal, merciless goals. Their refusal to embrace mutation and their ruthless purging of corrupted limbs makes them distinct from typical Chaos followers, aligning more with a cold, calculated use of power than fanatical devotion. In this sense, they share the Unbound's disdain for divine servitude, but differ in their reluctance to fully harness the warp's chaotic energies. It strikes me as like a they're very calculating in that if the risk is too high, they're not going to do it. If it's the least efficient, or if it's not as efficient as what Perturabo demands, they ain't going to do it.
Yeah. You don't want to get decimated, man. It's the last thing you
Mhm.
want to have happen to you.
Mm-hmm. And so we got another homebrewed Iron Warrior related faction called the Flesh Forged. The Flesh Forged are a breakaway warband of Iron Warriors who have cast off their legion's disdain for mutation, embracing Chaos Unbound as a means to transcend flesh and steel alike. Rejecting the cold purity of machine augmentation, they intentionally expose themselves to raw warp energy, reshaping their bodies into grotesque living weapons, muscle layered with demon plate, limbs reforged into cannons, eyes that burn with unreality. The Flesh Forged strength lies not in resisting corruption, but in mastering it, sculpting their own monstrous forms through will alone, and waging war as walking engines of terror and agony.
Yeah. This one was easy. You know, they don't like corrupted limbs. Let's go hard on corrupted limbs. Let's use possessed models and forge or fuse these guys to their armor.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good.
Yeah. Pretty simple. Go dip your... They all are just dipping their toes in the kiddie pool of chaos, hoping for some cool mutations. And yeah, they get some.
One accidentally gets a tentacle and doesn't like it, and
Whatever. That's the way she goes sometimes.
Cut it off, dip it back into the warp, try again.
Try again. Try again. Oh my god.
although I do like that as a concept though, like somehow making a pool of concentrated warp energy that you're like, no, different mutation, back in again. No, I want a hammer. Come here, I want a hammer arm. Why do you keep giving me tentacles?
Why? I want a cool gun arm, not a tentacle arm.
What about
I'll even
tentacles
take a
with a hammerhead attached?
Yeah. So you know, you can definitely find a spot for the Iron Warriors in the Unbound if you try hard enough, but I don't think most of them do it. You're definitely creating a little niche in the Legion, but they're there. The next batch we'll go to is unknown Astartes legions, and there's one that I know people are gonna love to talk about that we'll get into here.
So, unknown Astartes legions. The unknown Astartes legions and shadowy warbands that succumb to Chaos Unbound vanish from Imperial records. Their names are raised or whispered only in forbidden lore. These lost chapters often fall not through open rebellion, but through quiet corruption, embracing the raw, godless power of the warp to pursue their own secret ambitions. Their identities become myths, their deeds erased by time, yet their dark influence lingers like a shadow across war-torn battlefields and forgotten star systems. And one of the ones that we know more of or hear more of would be the Legion of the Damned. Some believe the Legion of the Damned may be the remnants of a forgotten chapter that in a moment of desperate sacrifice forged a pact not with the Chaos Gods, but the Warp itself. Shrouded in flame and ghostlight, they now exist in a half-real state, immortal, untethered, and guided by a will beyond death. Their sudden appearances on the battlefield may be less divine intervention and more of a work of warriors who have mastered a sliver of the warp to continue their eternal cursed crusade.
Yeah, the Legion of the Damned. You know, this chapter is rife with mystery and the unknown. It'd be a wild episode. Do you guys have any fun little thing you want to say about them real quick without getting too hard?
I think the most recent material I've gone to that's included them was the Fall of Cadia, and it's one of those you can't. It's hard to distinguish for some people between like spirits and like creatures infused with the warp, and a lot of people do like have an inkling that they're like the spirits of like dead warriors. But one thing that is kind of important to note is that when the Necron pylons were activated on Cadia, they literally vanished. They were launched back into the warp. And it wasn't like they faded, they like instantly vanished as if they were like literally booted out of this reality.
Huh.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they're definitely like very warped tide. You know, obviously I don't think we will ever know how the Legion of the Damned became these like fire spirit Astartes, you know. There's tons of cool theories. Some people think that like these are the Emperor's demons, and the Emperor has been able to manifest warp or consolidate warp entity into his own form of, you know, quote unquote demon, and these guys would be them. Them being a part of Unbound, like I thought it was a cool concept. If I was laying out all the theories in front of me, would I choose them to go Unbound? Like them making some infernal pact to save themselves? Yeah, probably not. I probably wouldn't put them in that category, but they could be.
Interesting.
Cool models though. Lots of cool Primaris ones. I wonder if they will ever make lots of cool Primaris conversions for them. I wonder if they'll ever make a Primaris kit. Hard to say.
Very interesting.
All right. Now we will jump to Renegades and Cultists. Renegades, Guardsmen, Cultists, and Beastmen are often drawn to Chaos Unbound by desperation, fury, or the promise of freedom through raw power. Unlike traditional Chaos worshippers, they do not seek favor from the gods, but mastery over the warp itself, wielding fear and shadow like weapons. These mortals become the backbone of Unbound cults, feral, fanatical, and unshackled from the higher creed, but their own will to rise. So I came up with a Guardsman regiment, a cult, and some Beastmen. So we'll go through them, starting with the Guardsman regiment called the Cadian X. Once again, we're getting into some fun algebra where the X is the unknown number, essentially, which kind of is this whole mathematical concept that we talked about in the last little bit of Unbound last episode. So the Cadian X was once a proud Imperial Guard regiment stationed near the Eye of Terra. But years of attrition, isolated, and exposure to the warp anomalies shattered their loyalty. Refusing to die for distant lords or mad gods, they embraced the path of Chaos Unbound, using warp-touched relics and fear-fueled rites to survive and evolve. The Cadian, now clad in scavenged armor and draped in black banners, the Cadian X fights not for an empire or a demon, but for their own ruthless vision of freedom through domination. So yeah, basically there's some disillusioned guardsmen that they're like, we're done fighting for gods. We're done fighting against gods. Let's just, I don't know, fight for ourselves for once. There's a great kill team that you can buy called the Blooded, and it is their version of like a guardsman regiment that goes to chaos. It's pretty cool. It has a commissar in it. It's got like an Ogren, a couple cool kits.
The only signs of a traitor guardsman faction.
Yep. Yeah, there's not much to it, but it's there lingering.
I do like the look of that kit though. It looks pretty sweet, especially with the Ogren.
They have a couple add-on kits to that too. I wonder if I could find them really quick. Of just like different possessed cultists and stuff, and they're pretty wild. Oh, actually, they're coming up here right now with the Veil Touched. I put them in here, not in the Guardsmen. So the Veil Touched are a cult of mortals who revere the shadowy power of Chaos Unbound, drawing strength from fear, illusion, and the unseen. Cloaked in tattered robes and whispered half-truths, they move through the hive cities and war zones like a creeping plague, sowing panic and paranoia long before the blade is drawn. To them, shadow is not absence, it is a presence unacknowledged. The raw edge of the warp made manifest in terror and silence. Yeah, so they just worship the darkness, and on those dark nights, they come out and they steal your goat or whatever they're into. Thanks, Gerald. Thanks, Gerald. The models that I would use for these guys are pretty obvious. You'd start off with these Chaos Cultists. Very cool. Paint them all black. And then you can also get some Accursed Cultists, which are these guys here, which are kind of more given into the chaos, you know, while not being like a demon. Like none of these guys look like they're possessed by a specific demon type. And then the other little piece for this Veiled Touch would be you gotta include a whole bunch of Chaos Spawn in it. If we're talking just weak mortal cultists, not Astartes, there has to be a bunch of Chaos Spawn. They don't have the willpower to survive this level of power. And then we got the final cult or whatever. These are called the Void Fur Savages, and they are beastmen. It was fun going through the Chaos Gods episodes and learning about Blood Gores, Zangors. I forget all of them. Pestigores. I forget the Slanish one. But basically, you got these beastmen that are abhumans that then also get mutated further by the power of the warp into very specific god-like creature or god appearance-like creatures. They don't have the powers, but they look like it, you know? So the Voidfur Savages, they would fit into Chaos Unbound, and they are ideal vessels, driven by primal instinct and raw emotion, perfect conduits for warp energies born of fear, hatred, and madness. The Void Fur Savages, a savage cult of unbound beastmen, are marked by their jet black fur and eyes like void glass, moving with unnatural speed and rage through ash waste and underhive ruins. Impossibly violent and utterly fearless, they worship no god, only the strength of terror and the purity of unleashed brutality. Yeah, so I would paint these guys with that jet black fur. And I'll pull up some minis here for anyone watching. And yeah, it's like these are kind of not, they don't have any god-specific alignment. They're just kind of your standard ones. And then maybe they got like that jet black fur that's kind of ties them to the faction a little better. Pretty cool.
Very cool stuff. I bet too, if you want to make it even crazier, you can get models from like the Beastmen Bray herds that just released in Old World, or any of the Beastmen type of units from AOS as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because even with like, they have weapons that they can work with. Like, you don't need to give them pistols necessarily. You could, if you want, give the odd guy a pistol to really kind of 40kify him, but it's not necessary. Like, they're beastmen, man. They're savages. Yeah. The kill team I would use is the Felgor Ravengers. I know I said the beastmen, but that's the actual name in case anyone was wondering. And yeah, that's kind of what I came up with for the different guardsmen regiments, cultists, and the beastmen.
Fantastic. But let's talk about something marginally more civilized. And by that, not really, because we're going to talk about the Dark Mechanicus. Dark Mechanicum heretics seek unbound power to unlock secrets beyond even the corrupted machine god's reach. They view the warp as a code to be cracked and rewritten, rejecting divine servitude for empirical dominion. Their twisted fusion of machine and sorcery embodies the unbound ideal of mastering raw energy through intellect and will. And then this homebrew faction here is the Dark Corpuscari Electro Priests. The Dark Corpuscari Electro Priests are a heretical sect of the Dark Mechanicum who forsake conventional power sources, instead channeling volatile warp energies through their arcane devices and cybernetic enhancements. Their bodies crackle with unpredictable currents of raw psychic force, allowing them to unleash devastating bursts of eldritch lightning that warp reality itself. feared even among other heretics. They blur the line between man, machine, and demon, embodying the unbound ideal of mastering the warp as a weapon beyond divine control.
Yeah, fuck yeah. And the Corpuscari Electro Priests are the models we would use because those are the guys that have these like power generators strapped on their back, and then they're wearing these like weird finger gloves with cables going to them. And you're like, what are they doing with those? Oh, they're shooting lightning bolts out of their fingers. Pretty fucking cool. Now, with the dark Corpuscari, they're shooting like literal warp now out of their fingers. It's almost like technological psyker, essentially. Yeah, pretty cool.
Looks pretty cool.
Yeah. You know, you could go all manner of ways with the Dark Mechanicum and Unbound. They fall pretty good into it. Like, it's just natural that, like, if you have this gun and you're trying to make it better, yeah, you're going to infuse it with some warp energies, and that might help. So I feel like a lot of Dark Mechanicum go Unbound. And I feel like, too, just even being, like, more spiritual and coming from their own religion where they worship, like, machines and stuff, or they don't worship at all. They're not worshiping the Chaos God. So, you know, being Unbound really just makes a nice little home for them to kind of do their sciences and experiment with the warp without being slaves to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just got a question from Ransom in the chat. Oh, snap. Is this one different from Bonus 43? Bonus 43 was, we only did 15 of the 26 pages. So we're just carrying on going through what we had wrote. So this is part 2. And we can move on to night houses.
Ooh.
So night houses are a quite fun topic because there is actually some stuff in the new codex that does point to Chaos Unbound.
Ooh. Very cool.
Chaos Knights aligned with Unbound forsake their gods. Banners to become avatars of personal ambition and terror. They bond with parasitic wings and demon angels not to serve, but to own the powers that grant them dominion over the battlefields. Their fallen nobility is twisted into ruthless self-rule, making them living nightmares of shadow and flame. So we have House Grimlin. Once a noble protector, this knight has forsaken all allegiance to gods and kings, embracing the Chaos Unbound creed to wield raw warp power instead. Gifted or cursed with parasitic wings, they now soar above battlefields like the Dark Harbinger, striking fear into the hearts of friend and foe alike. Their flight is a terrifying blend of machine and nightmare, a living weapon of shadow and death unleashed from the chains of servitude.
Hell yeah. It's funny, Grim was messaging me earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday, but he was talking about the Chinch Titan house that fell to chaos and grew wings. And that Titan was called Skylock. And it had a model, but it was epic, like from Epic Miniatures. So you can't really find it nowadays. But I kind of stole that, to be honest. I'm like, let's make some knights with wings, because that's fucking cool. And what I wanted to do was put Hell Drake wings on knights, essentially. So you get that mechanical wing as opposed to like the leathery wing. Although the leathery wing would be pretty cool too for that parasitic wing ability, but I think appearance-wise it'd look cooler with the Helldrake wings on them.
It
How
could be cool to like.
would that be? Go ahead.
I would say it could be cool to like try and blend the two and like carve out some of the sections in between the raised areas on the wings, and then like use like PVA glue to like give it like a fleshy like bonding instead in between that section.
Yeah. So it's like it's connecting the two a little bit better. You're getting the best of both worlds then, where that knight's kind of bleeding into his wings just as much as the wings are bleeding into the knight. Yeah. Cool little night house, man. Like, there's not much to it. It's just if you want Imperial Knights with some wings, well, come join Unbound. We got them. What did you find in the new Knight Codex there?
So in the new Knight Codex, there is mention of the house of Mandrakor. The fallen nobles of House Mandrakor throw in their lot with Abaddon the Despoiler. So that is not bound, but it does go on. Seeking his favour for joining the ongoing push in the Necromon Gauntlet towards the Sanctum Wall. Yet the Knights of Mandrakor's honour remain a paranoid and self-serving brood. While some among their number swear oaths to fight alongside the Black Legion and their allies, others decline to do so. These latter swiftly set out on a crusade of their own, evading the consequences of their refusal and claiming that they alone quest for true honour of their house. What prizes they seek or cunning plan they are operating to remains, for the time being, hidden.
Ooh, yeah, that is very close. That's almost for sure Unbound.
It's like GW kind of want to do something that is like Unbound, but they don't exactly know how to tie it in yet. And I think like stuff like this is like they're like dipping the toes in the water sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping we see a lot more.
You know, GW is more than welcome to this Chaos Unbound idea. Like I said, it's not my concept. I would love it, man. It's so needed. It's sweet that we get more and more of these little clips of what it could be and look like and how it would operate. Sure.
Plus, the more they take onto it, the more potential we've got for what we can create.
Excellent. And yes,
more minis, more plastic crack.
Listen, wife, they just came out with a new faction. And if I want to collect them all, which I do, I have to buy some knights. Yeah.
Part of me thinks that like stuff like Pokemon definitely ruined our generation, even if you never played it like that. Like our generation just seems to have that mindset of I want it all, I want it now.
Collect. Yeah. Shit, man. Yeah, that I wonder if it was Pokemon that did that. What did it? Yeah, what's with the collections?
Because actually, when you think about it, there were like 3 or 4 different shows that came out around the same time that was big hits with kids that were either collecting cards or monsters or
whether it's Yu-Gi-Oh or
Pokemon, even like the like card captors and stuff like that. There was a big theme on you want to collect everything and you want to do it now.
And for all the gamers, like there was this whole thing like in the mid to late 90s with like all the platforming collectathons where you collected everything in the game to 100%. So that probably contributed.
Oh God. Yeah.
Actually, on that one, even with Pokemon, they made a real big thing when it first released about if you collect everything, there's a special prize for you at the end. And it was literally just a message from developer saying, "Well done, well done. You've wasted a year of your life. Congratulations." Like, cheers, dude.
Not the first year I wasted, won't be the last.
This is just practice for later on in life.
Yeah, I'm just getting started. Yeah, that's so funny. Ransom says Eisenhorn series would fit Unbound perfect. I'm very curious about that. Maybe you might have to call in later or type it out. Up to you. But definitely curious what you mean by that. All right, well, jump to we'll increase the scale a little bit. We go from knights to titans. Traitor titans, corrupted by the Unbound, become autonomous engines of destruction, guided by fragmented will rather than command. These titanic cores reject all allegiances, driven by inscrutable motives and an insatiable hunger for power. They are both weapons and warlords, massive, merciless, and impossible to predict. And the Legio that I came up with is Umbra Infracta. The Legio Umbra Infracta are a dread titan legion devoted to Chaos Unbound, masters of shadow and concealment on a colossal scale, gifted or cursed with the ability to shroud entire war machines in an impenetrable darkness. They can make towering titans vanish from sight, striking unseen and vanishing without a trace. Their presence turns the battlefield into nightmare voids where fear reigns supreme and enemies' doom comes with shadows they cannot even perceive. So, yeah, basically the concept is what happens when you can conceal a 50-foot tall Titan through warp shenanigans. When you paint that boy Vanta black and then slap on a warp coating, you get the Umbra and Fracta, where they create these little like pockets of blackness. It's not just that they're black, like they exude it out and they create these bubbles, and you're shooting into these bubbles of blackness, not even knowing if like your shots are hitting things, if they just disappear. Yikes. And then all of a sudden you hear the war horn, and that's when you know you're fucked.
I could imagine that, like, it literally looking like bullets are getting swallowed by shadows, and plasma energy is just like losing color and then dissipating like as soon as it gets anywhere close.
That's a cool picture of the plasma, like getting drained of the color or whatever.
Ooh, that's cool.
And then just kind of wisps out. The models that I would focus primarily on this would be Chaos Warhound Titans. You could do all of them. You could do Reavers. You could do the whole house. But I kind of just like the Warhounds and their hunter approach that's kind of built into their machine spirits, kind of stalking and, searching for prey. It kind of fits that Unbound hunter vibe a little bit. Like it kind of makes it feel almost like one of the demons, with the vibe and the mindset on the way they operate. So.
Plus, you also got with the lore in the Chaos Knights now that on the control unit of the Warhounds is that link to the main throne, that like the main knight can literally take over like the Warhounds, the persona of the preceptor and everything, and like they can literally become one.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, Titans are so cool, man.
They are cool.
As with all things in 40K, I wouldn't want to be a Titan or a Titan precepts, but fucking cool.
Right?
All
you
right,
definitely
Mark.
wouldn't want to fight one.
No.
Would someone like to explain to Grim what Vanta Black is? Since he's asking about it.
Yeah. Vanta Black's like the darkest shade of black. It's so dark that it like almost absorbs light or whatever. Maybe go watch some YouTube, like a YouTube video on it. Pretty neat.
Yep. Apparently you do not want to fill a swim or line a swimming pool with this shade too, apparently.
Why?
I don't know how true this is, but I saw some reel a long time ago, and it says, and the reason it says not to line it with Vanta Black is because it's going to absorb all the sunlight that hits it, and that's going to cause all the chlorine water to evaporate, and so then you're just left with like a massive cloud of chlorine gas that just explodes.
Oh, that actually could be a thing,
Oh, yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, I'm like, that sounds like it could happen, but yeah.
Maybe we should try it.
Maybe we should join the Warhammer Patreon. I'll whip it together.
Coming 2026, Mythbusters Warhammer style.
It only lasted one episode after the chloroform bomb. Yeah.
Oh man.
Like the three of us, like on wanted posters all around every country. Like, don't let these psychos out. Get them.
Don't let them. This Lorehammer terrorist group. First, they're blowing up Lupercal's workplace, and now this. When will they stop? Oh man. So back to the Night Houses or the Titan Houses. You actually came up with one yourself there, Lupercal.
Yeah, it's one that I'm working on the lore for, and well, as of today, I'm gonna be also building it. Starting with War Dog. With the new War Dog packs as well. So I kind of, obviously I'm a Chaos Undivided fan, and one of the things behind Black Legion is like their main focus is actually revenge on the galaxy sort of thing. So I kind of like enhanced on that, but without them like working with the Chaos Gods sort of thing. Okay. So I actually went with the High Gothic name for the Legio of Vindicta Nihilus, or dark revenge.
Cool.
Very little is known about the origin of this Legio by Imperial records. It is suspected by the Ordo Hereticus that the Legio was lost during warp transit in the Great Crusade or hailed from a planet that was not made compliant before the heresy. The truth of the Legio's origin was never recorded. Created in secrets from the remnant of the war on Beta Garman by fabricator Calbalhal, the Legio disappeared en route to Terra without trace. A shift in the warp displaced them in time into a galaxy they did not know, cut off from those they were meant to be loyal to. The Legio was rediscovered by Abaddon 10,000 years later on a small planetoid drifting at the edge of the Eye of Terror, besieged by demons and on the brink of destruction. The Wallmaster offered them a choice, alliance or death. A deal stricken, a pact made, not of servitude, but in mutual respect of a desire for revenge. Where the need for revenge is at its purest, they will heed the call of the Warmaster. The Legio offer no fealty to the old four. They bend to no master's will, their desire to see destruction to everyone who abandoned them and anything they influenced. They carve their revenge one battle at a time. They do not care their opponent. The universe is their enemy, no matter the dimension. To stand in their way, be it ally or foe, is a death sentence. Their adepts hold no ties to the Mechanicum or their darker cousins. They serve one master, the Legio. The gods they pray to, the very machines under their care. Their ambition to power the very vengeance their gods desire.
Cool.
That's sick.
Yeah, so they're kind of like opportunists then a little bit there, where it's like, okay, so Abaddon's going on another crusade. Let's get in on this. Not because we like what he's really up to, but because we can make use of it. Like, and yeah, okay, sure,
More destruction.
yeah, sure, he saved us a couple years ago and saved our legion, but also we're Titans and it's just fucking Abaddon, so who cares?
You lost a war 10,000 years ago. Get over it. Take the L. Move on. Jeez.
Move on. Gee.
Like the way I want to write it is that like they sort of don't actually know that they're 10,000 years in the future until Abaddon points it out to them as well. So they think they've just been like displaced in the warp and stuck like on this like with this planetoid where they're being besieged by demons. And when like Abaddon saves them, in essence, like they're like kind of like kick off a little bit because they've been fighting this fight for 10 years and they wanted to be at the Siege of Terror. And then he explains that like they haven't seen them in 10,000 years. And then also tells them that on top of that, nobody even bothered to look for them or even announce they existed.
Oh, and that's kind of where, yeah.
And that's when they're like, fuck the Mechanicum, fuck the Dark Mechanicum. If they didn't care about us, we're just going to fuck them up.
Yeah. I was wondering where that little bit of the revenge plot came in, and I kind of assumed it was like, no one came to help us, but it goes deeper than just that. It's no one even cared we were here in the beginning. Yeah.
It's like they're obviously because their machine spirits were present at Beta Garman and saw their original Legios all get destroyed and like severed by the loyalists. They'll never side with the loyalists either, because it like actually part of their spirit would have been severed at the time, because obviously most houses feel like a family even if they're not directly related, like precept to precept.
Yeah.
And then I also want to kind of like hit on this concept that like the spirit of a previous pilot can come back and take over, and like that's going to come into place when they start fueling it with like warp energy, and that the warp energy mixes with the spirit of like a dead pilot and starts to become like the equivalency of a true AI, like in an actual spirit in the machine, not just a trapped demon.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. So like did they do some type of warp ritual to turn himself into that spirit to be able to bring himself out of the warp and into the machine? Did it just happen by accident, do you know, or like
So I've been reading bits and bats of lore with the knights, and some of the Chaos Titans, like there's one like it was piloted by a king, and during like some sort of act with the warp, it gave that king's persona that's still trapped within the machine's naturally like already existing machine spirit to come forth, and not only come forth but actually take over like the pilot's body and brain and like actually consume him.
Yeah.
And, like he essentially revives himself and locks himself within the machine, and he becomes the machine's spirit sort of thing.
Cool. Yeah, that's
and
fun.
I was like, that's a really cool idea. I'm gonna steal that.
You know, if we're lucky, that might happen to one of us in the future. Fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be just fused to my boat. Driving the high seas.
Part of the ship, part of the crew, part of the ship, part of the crew.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like as a little boat, it's splish splash taking a bath, but it's actually the ocean.
All right, well, we'll move away from humanity and we will jump to some Xenos. There were actually 2 Xenos that are just rife for Unbound. The one is like, I couldn't have made a better Xenos myself for the Unbound conversation. So let's get into them.
Sure thing. Certain Xenos psychers and warlords embrace Chaos Unbound to escape the constraints of their species' beliefs and harness the warp unfiltered. They see in Unbound power a path beyond ancestral gods and cultural chains, a way to transcend limitations imposed by biology or tradition. Their alien minds bring new and terrifying interpretations to the Unbound forces, making them unpredictable and dangerous allies or enemies. And one such example is the Crave Marauders, Khrave. The Crave are ancient psychic predators who hunger not for flesh but for minds, infiltrating worlds through manipulation and enslavement of will. Civilizations fall not by force but by whispers that twist populations into obedient husks, leaving silence and psionic scars in their wake. They do not conquer conventionally. They infest and enthrall, turning entire worlds into psychic feeding grounds long before Imperial forces arrive. And for more information, you go back to 187, which they talk about the Jacaro, the Crave, and the Lacrimole.
Yeah, so if you're watching the live stream, you can see a picture of a Crave up there, and basically it's like an evil vampire gargoyle bat creature. It's so perfect, man. It leans right into it. They feed on you. They use the warp powers. These guys, they thrive on just eating your terror. That's what they love, man. Just imagine these guys mixed in with a bunch of Furies or Gargoyles. You wouldn't even be able to spot them out, really. When it comes to models for making them, the way I would do it, you know, we've talked about scale before, and I don't think the Crave would have a lot at the same time. So the models I would use would be the Aberrant Gore Warden from AOS. I'm just pulling it up right now so people can see. As you can see, it's kind of this like vampire fleshy bat thing. So you'd take a lot of that and then you just start slapping on Dark Eldar parts. The jagged armor, it's all so perfect for the kit for the Crave. That'd be a fucking sweet model.
The Drukari definitely have the right style for like kit bashing stuff like the Crave.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're perfect, man. Definitely go listen to that episode 87 for like the full kind of breakdown on the Crave, and you be the judge if they fit into Unbound or not. I'm all for it. Love it. The other one we have, the other minor Xenos, is the Uvoth, and man, they're just as good. Both of them are good for different ways. Like one is, well, we'll read about the Uvoth, and then maybe I'll give my spiel.
The Yuvath were an ancient and cruel Xenos empire, masters of warp, Titan sorcery, and horrific body modifications, ruling through terror and dark perfection, though exterminated by the Imperium during the Avidian Crusade. Their cursed relics and warp-infused ruins continue to poison the stars. Haunting explorers and inquisitors alike, they stand as a grim warning of the horrors wrought by unchecked warp corruption and the devastating cost of pursuing power without restraint. Yuvatha relics are ancient artifacts steeped in the dark currents of the warp, radiating corrupting energies that twist minds and matter alike. These relics embody the raw, untamed power prized by followers of Chaos Unbound, granting terrible strength at the cost of slowly unraveling sanity. Possessing such relics is a double-edged sword, a double-edged curse, tools of immense power that demand mastery of chaos within or total submission to its will.
Yeah, so they were just known for making these wild, one-of-a-kind warp artifact relics. And some of them might be very simple. They might just be a warp song box. You open it up and you can hear the sounds of the warp. Others might, you open it up and it's a whole fucking black hole that consumes the planet or whatever. They're these crazy relics that I think one of my favorite examples of one that actually exists is it's this disruptor relic where it disrupts the warp around it. And it disrupts it on quite the large scale. So the calm tides of the warp become very fluctuant. And if you fly past planets that have these on them, like it's almost impossible to fly past them because the current's so rowdy on them. Pretty cool stuff. They also, yeah, so for models, you would probably use, like, you could use any type of model because these are relics of a long dead society. So the Yuvoth are not picking them up. So you don't need to worry about making a Yuvoth. You can use an orc who has a Yuvoth relic. And I would probably take some type of Necron piece of cube. You know, there's tons of weird tech bits with the Necron and slightly convert it and then call it a day.
There's I discovered last night there's some very good stuff on Etsy that like people have 3D printed that are like little bits of Necron Tower and stuff that like
sure
it's quite themed around certain factions, but with like a little bit of conversion where you could easily make it into a relic or like an ancient monument or something that like the Yuvath or like the Crave would have had like at some point in time, and within reason, because there's no like tied on law to them in like proper description of the planet and stuff like that. It's all up to you how you think that like one of the small factions of that overall race could have had their home world or like where they lived.
Yeah. The Yuvoth, they also have some dark energy constructs, and once again, if you're watching the live stream, now's a great time to look.
Yuvath dark energy constructs are eerie, war-forged entities, shaped from raw, unstable energies that, rather than the favor of any chaos god. They embody the unbound ideal by existing purely as tools of power and will, bound only to those who can command their volatile forms. These constructs strike without mercy, warping reality around them and serving as living weapons of fear and destruction, unshackled from divine allegiance.
Very cool. So if you're watching the stream, we have pulled up Morghast Harbingers. And they're these like bone-built, ghost-driven, like there's little ghost wisps on them. And what you would do is you would rip off those guys' head and you would replace it with a dark energy marble. You know, it's a marble and you can just paint it black and call it a day. And now you got yourself a badass dark energy Yuvoth construct.
You could, I'd have thought there'd have also been like places online where you can get it like where it's a clear marble that's got like something in the middle to give it a color that way, which could be a good way to go.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm gonna pull up real quick just a picture of the construct that I was trying to mimic. Here it is. Okay. Pulling it up, and you can see it now. All right, on the right side, you can see this kind of like bone fragmented, kind of scrapped up creature. And then on the top, it has like this black circle that's kind of shooting out black electricity. So yeah, I think those Morgoths would be just fucking perfect. Yeah. Well, close down that tab. All right. That was the episode. We made it through the notes. There's one last little closing thought here that we read, and then we'll maybe get to a call-in or two. Chaos Unbound represents a rare and terrifying path in the galaxy of Warhammer 40k, a philosophy not rooted in worship, but in domination. It is the raw, hungry edge of the warp, wielded by those too proud to kneel and too ambitious to die quiet deaths. Its followers are heretics, warlords, demons, and monsters who see the warp not as divine force, but as a forge to shape their own power. Whether they are night lords who terrorize from the skies, corrupted knights with parasitic wings, or dark mechanicum priests sparking with warp lightning, all unbound reject the chains of gods and empire alike. In a universe ruled by dogma, Chaos Unbound is heresy at its purest. The belief that power belongs only to those strong enough to seize and shape it themselves. Yeah, man, there is a truth to the universe that, might makes right. If I could beat the shit out of you, whatever I say goes. 1 + 1 = apple if I can beat the shit out of you. And that's the whole concept of Unbound. They are forging the galaxy how they want it.
If you think about it, in a way, that's how the Imperium was formed, though, wasn't it? Might makes right. Emperor says this, you listen. And then, like, Chaos Unbound is kind of like the direct opposite. Like, it's the same thing, but, like, not
more
for
personal.
the same reasons.
Yeah, it's like collectivist versus individualist, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, same motivation pretty well, power, survival, control. Yeah. Yeah. I love the Unbound. I truly hope GW does something with it. Fingers crossed that's probably never going to happen, but lots of cool stuff in here. And it seems like everyone is really kind of latched onto this Unbound. So if you're ever talking to anyone at GW and, if I get another interview with one of those writers, we will be mentioning it to them. So, yeah. I just dropped a link in the chat. If you want to join the show, now is the time. Let's do a little chat with you boys. So what did you kind of take away? Likes, dislikes, plot holes?
I've been toying with this idea recently, like, because of the whole Unbound thing of trying to figure out how we would go through the process of directly, obviously it's format law, but directly harnessing that warp energy with, like, for a mechanicum form sort of thing. Like, are they, like, would they be able to build some sort of extraction device that can take that energy and convert it into power for, like, the Titans or, like, weaponry? Or would they actually have to go down that spiritual line, which will potentially be engraving runes into the Titans' legs to draw the energy in and stuff like that? And it's like just trying to like flesh out that part that I'm like trying to figure out at the moment.
Grey Knights have some wild relics where it's kind of like how you're describing there. Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah. I think that's going to be Grey Knights are possibly going to be where I start looking book-wise to, like, try and formulate, like, that side of it.
How
route.
That tech side actually kind of can tie. Because,
Yeah.
like you're saying, you're trying to wonder how you can get warp power into reality without doing the spiritual runes and ritual side of thing. Yeah.
And so there's a bit in the one of the Black Legion books. I think it's the Talon of Horus, the first one. When they first meet Abaddon, he's actually been trying to create warp energy synthetically. and he creates he collects all these different materials and like combines them. But he also he because he knows that like, or he's come to the conclusion that there's a direct link between the material and the immaterial. Not only does he like combine different chemicals, but then he also combines ritualistic things as well, like the tears of virgins and the blood of children and stuff like that, like to like try and get that link between it to see if that's how it works. Eventually, he gives up and eventually gives up and just makes like this crazily strong like wine that he like gives to everyone when he first meets them.
That was my favorite part in that section of the book, and he's giving it to them, and like the main narrator, who was like 1,000 Suns guys, is like, this isn't the greatest thing in the world, but then he gives it to like a former world leader. He's just like, man, this stuff's great. More.
like the talking, and he just like sort of like looks over to it, and he's like, "You can have some more if you want." He's like, "Mine." So we know what drinks they like, and it involves blood of children. They didn't realize this, but now we do.
Delicious. Nothing fresher. There's a Grey Knight relic called the Etheric Conduit, and it's a Dark Age of Technology relic that allows the bearer to channel their own psychic energies through a complex network of wetware components to directly manipulate the basic structure of Imperium's vehicles. But basically, yeah, there are ways, like even psychic hoods are technically like where you're channeling psychic energy through technology, like actual physical wires and components and all that kind of stuff. So fun concept. I think, Grim, you ready? Let's get you on the stage here. Yo.
How's it going, boys?
Hey, buddy.
Howdy.
How are you tonight?
Living the dream, as always.
It's the only way to be, baby.
Yeah, man.
So I'm loving the Unbound concept. I know that Lorehammer's bounce around the Unbound versus the Undivided, the Undivided. Just kind of bringing it back to last night's episode in regards with Hottie's comment about maybe bringing like a Primarch back to it. And Loop and I were talking about even Vashtor kind of being involved in terms of not necessarily being a chaos god, but possibly, but every other chaos god has a Primarch to follow it. And who but better other than Purdy? I mean, I don't give a shit about the Primarchs, but like if you're gonna put one Primarch towards Unbound, it's gotta be him, man. Like it straight up has to be him. And GW's always been dancing around this topic or thought of having this Unbound concept. Like this could almost be the start to it. Like even with the Space Wolves coming in, you guys talked about this earlier. We could possibly have another Space Wolves Primarch, and then all of a sudden it becomes a snowball effect where we have to bring everyone back. Of course.
Yeah, have to. Like you said with Portorabo, he would make a great fit because he is a demon prince of Undivided, whatever the fuck that means, and he doesn't worship any of the gods. So how did he get the permission of the gods to get transcendent? Like
it must not have been one of them. And even with once again, one of Hottie's comments is like, this Unbound, Undivided entity could be this grand architect that had even created, these 4 chaos gods or X amount of whatever warp entities there are. Not saying that you need to have some sort of big bad or architect like that, but the stars are almost aligning in such a way that it brings fun to the story, that's for sure. At least for us fucking dorks.
Like the concept of having that big overhead leader is interesting, especially when it comes to Unbound, where there shouldn't be leaders necessarily. But that doesn't mean that you don't still have somebody at the top. There is always going to be the best. So who is it? Who is the best Unbound follower? Yeah, Portarabo probably.
Yeah,
His Legion, not so much. His Legion's kind of waffly, like I was saying. They could go either way a little bit, but him himself in Portarabo, yeah, he's there.
Yeah. No, it's definitely got something to it though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Portarabo was even doing some like warp manipulation with technology. Maybe that's just in my mind and I'm making that up, but I feel like he was doing some experiments with warp stuff.
So my understanding of his ascension to demonhood is that he treated the warp like another element, and that it was something that he would be able to, with enough understanding, to manipulate like he can the rest of the universe. And I think that's what eventually created his way to ascensionhood. But there's also the thing that he kind of had an inkling it could be done, because he literally saw Fulgrim's apotheosis in front of him. And whilst Fulgrim is Slaneshi tainted, Fulgrim's ascension was actually like latching onto Perturabo's soul and trying to steal it, and absorbing loads of Eldari souls. So it's already there in the law that there is other ways other than directly being given the power from a god. Like Angron was like basically flooded with energy from Khorne to bring him back to life when Logar fucked about with his mentality.
Yeah.
So
or like maybe another
ways.
Yeah, another maybe interesting example is if we take a loyalist like Korax, where he's changed into something else, some type of warp form. So what gave him that power? Was it just corrupting? Was it just like a side effect of being in the warp, or was it a gift, a boon of sorts?
And that's something that I think they need to flesh out a bit with it. That we know Korax has warp taint, so if he does come back, they kind of need to flesh that out a little bit of how did this happen? Like, why did it happen? Because it kind of, for me, it's just like a null point to just like drop him and go, oh, Corvus is back. It's corrupted. Have it.
Have it. Yeah, well, how about this for a fucking path of derailment? What if Korax was the leader of the Unbound? He is shadow incarnate. He is terror incarnate. The heretics hear his name and they go, shit, he's in the warp coming for me. And they flee. Maybe he's Unbound. He's using the raw energies of the warp. He's not worshiping any of the gods. Yeah.
I feel like he's stroking his ego too much, though, and that he's probably more susceptible to Tzeentch, if anything, because like he just wants to maybe know more, or maybe even Slanesh. Like he's excessive in that sense.
And I do think there's a plausibility of like we talk about these predators in the warp that are not actually chaos demons in the respect of worshipping the Four. What if somehow through warp energy he got attacked by one of these predators and merged with them, and that's what caused the transformation? So he literally could be like directly unbound purely just on that.
Yeah, some type of weird merger with him and like a greater demon or something of Unbound, where he just becomes a shadow form. Yeah.
Which would suit him perfectly if he was literally a greater demon made of shadow, and gave him that ability that maybe even like when he comes back to the materium is that shadow step thing that he had just goes to a whole new level where he literally just turns to shadow in front of you and disappears.
Yeah.
Gone.
It's like the comment Ransom just made here, or is it an insane pact with Be'lakor and Corvus? Since we also know Be'lakor is a master of shadows as well.
Yeah,
that is true.
But Be'lakor, I believe it is known that his powers came from the 4 chaos gods. He has kind of rebelled and he has some like control and he's not really bound to them, but he fits so good, man. If he maybe old school Be'lakor lore would have fit a lot better, where he was just a demon of undivided, and undivided didn't necessarily mean he was bound to the chaos gods. It was more just chaos.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately they kind of took his lore in a different direction, and I was fighting the whole time to include him or not, and ultimately I'm like, I'm not breaking the lore is essentially what I came down to.
Yeah.
All right, Grim, any other thoughts?
Honestly, I was gonna show off some models because we were talking last night about like size wise, but I'm thinking to myself, it really only benefits people that are in the live stream. So I mean, I can shell this one out, but it doesn't help the listeners. So
I want to see your minis though.
I was just gonna say this is gonna be a shell out to all you plebs out there that aren't subscribing to the Patreon. You get to fucking see this. Yes. For like what, $2.50 or $5. Stop buying fucking Starbucks and come and look at these beautiful mugs here.
I love it when our call-ins do the advertising for us.
Yeah, and they're always so angry too about it, which I really like. Like, fucking do it already. Look at these minis he's bringing out.
Grim, you know what? I was gonna say, you know what model I want to see.
Okay.
Don't you forget that bad boy.
I got you set up. All right. So scale wise, we got yourself your Kairos Featherweave next to Magnus, and these are pretty damn close in size. And now when we were talking about apocalypse monsters in terms of not quite Skylock size, but if you pull this, I don't have 9 tongues. I can't actually pronounce this thing's name. But if you look at these things side by side, this motherfucker is far larger than your demon Primarch Magnus the Red, who is no longer red and who is no longer gray and is now red.
Yeah, so, that model is huge, and like even the way that model is like sculpted, like it's kind of haunched and stuff, and it's still massive. Like
he's a big boy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's anything past 7th edition, but I do have some data slots if anyone needs to see it. But once again, you have to join the Discord in order to get to us. So get on it.
Get after it. Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, I'm glad you showed us that. One final question before I boot you. Did you listen to that clip I sent you?
Yes, I did. Actually, it's posted to the Imperial Tide members. Nice. And whoever hasn't heard that, it's Mark's reference to one of his books. You never named the book, so can you help us out there?
I don't know. Somebody sent that to me on the Discord. DM ENV is his name or something like that, his Discord tag. So I'm not actually sure what book that is, but that was a very cool description of like a demon of the warp that was not tied to any god. And the gods are like, I don't know what the fuck this is. We'll leave it alone.
It's probably best you do. You know,
probably best you do.
If you don't know what it is, don't fucking touch it.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. All right, Grim, thanks for calling in. We'll see you on the next one. Adios.
Later, boys.
All right, we got time for one quick call, and Alpha Primus will call you to the stage, get you a second to get ready. And in the meantime, make sure you go listen to the Lorehammer Listen to Lore podcast. All right, Alpha Primus. Welcome.
Wow.
Welcome.
That's like the longest time you've given me to get prepared for actually calling in.
Yeah, I wanted to shamelessly plug something, so.
Yeah, a whole 5 seconds as opposed to, and you're on.
And you're on. Yeah. Well, what's good, my man? How you liking the Unbound?
I love the concept personally. Something I was talking to you in the Discord is I'd like to see like a Imperium. So like I look at it like D&D, you have like your different natures, and like the Unbound to me seem like a nature. So it's like, well, what would be the Imperium, you know? And we threw a couple words around, like I said, like dogmatic, because you have certain factions in the Imperium that don't necessarily mesh up with the general Imperium theme. Like I mentioned the Illuminati before, who want to resurrect the Emperor and bring him back as a Star Child, which is completely contrary to what the rest of the Imperium is doing, where he can on his Golden Thorn. And if they did bring him back, like that would devastate the universe of Warhammer.
Yeah, it would change the whole landscape, and I don't think it would be for the better. But
No, I don't think it would be for the better either. But like I said, just kind of curious if you have Chaos Unbound, what's the polar opposite of it on the Imperium side? Because Templars who worship the Emperor, which is kind of unique in terms of Adeptus Astartes, because most of the Adeptus Astartes don't worship the Emperor. They see him as an actual being, not a god to be worshipped.
yeah.
And like, there's other niche characters you could point at that it's like, okay, so we have this on the Chaos side. What do we have on the Imperium side, kind of deal?
Yeah. we talked about Court. He poked a huge hole in my scheme, essentially. And or maybe it was Gerald, actually. He brought up loyalist librarians. And basically I was like, oh shit, you're right.
okay.
So every psyker just uses the warp, and isn't every psyker just an unbound psyker? So, and then we decided that whole ego thing. But ultimately, like, Unbound is... We brand it Chaos Unbound, but ultimately all librarians, all psychers fall into this bubble until they start to serve a god. But anytime you're tapping into that power, yeah. So I don't think you need the exact opposite or some type of like opposite, because this can also exist in there. We get these chapters that like start hunting relics and doing kind of more radical things like that, you know? So I think you can still have this idea in there, and you don't need to try to find like an opposite or something else, if that makes sense.
I get where you're coming from, but the main thing for me with Chaos Unbound is there's the hate for the Imperium. You see that, not necessarily that that's a core trait, but it seems that everyone that's associated with it they're not a fan of the Imperium.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's just like, you know, I fucking hate every government. If the Imperium was around, I would hate it even if I was a traitor or not. So if I go like Unbound, I still hate every fucking government.
Right.
Yeah.
But like I said,
yeah,
this is something to think about in
Yeah.
regards of the Unbound itself. When you're
Yeah.
talking about technology, when you actually expose people to electric-magnetic fields, it actually starts them to have what they feel like is paranormal experiences, but it's just the synapse in their brains being messed with. So it's not like they're actually seeing ghosts, but they feel like they're seeing ghosts. Well, you could do something similar with a relic in 40K, where you're exposing people, and we'll go with a magnetic field, which is causing all this warp phenomenon to happen in real space.
Yeah. I like that. I forget where I heard this from, but going on that magnetic concept, for a while there, I guess people were putting like magnetic things in their fingertips. Like electricians were doing this specifically because then they could put their hand on walls and find electrical wires. They could feel like the induced electrical voltage or whatever through this magnetic reception or whatever. It was very interesting.
Is that what Jim Carrey was doing in Cable Guy when he was like tapping on the walls?
Maybe he had a little I don't know the scientific words for it, but that's kind of the concept.
Yeah, but you know the scene where I'm talking about, where you're sitting there tapping on the walls
yeah.
trying to find the dude's cave. Yeah, okay, that explains it.
Fun.
I know there's that guy that had his like his contactless card like disassembled and like actually put into his skin, so when he goes to pay stuff, he literally just puts his hand on the card machine and it pays for him. It's like, why would you do it?
Yeah, those RFD chips or whatever.
Yeah, that's like one of those why would you do it ones, like of all things.
Yeah, the magnetic one was so weird because when you hear somebody who has it describe the feeling, they describe it in such like a bizarre, like it becomes like a seventh or sixth sense to them, and it's so weird. Try imagine. Describe taste to somebody who can't taste anything. That's the same thing I'm trying to just describe with this other sense that he has now, you know?
Right.
But very cool. So I highly recommend cut open your finger, put in magnetic things, and go touch some wires.
Something else you mentioned was a leader of the Unbound. Now, I might be incorrect here, but when someone dies, their soul goes to the warp, correct?
Yeah.
So that
Mhm.
means Conrad's soul is floating somewhere in the warp?
Yeah, and then I don't think so. So in order to hold any type of form in the warp, you have to have a willpower, not like Conrad Kurz, because he's a little bitch. You need a willpower like Porter Rabo to be able to maintain your soul form in the
I'm
warp.
just
And
throwing that
I was
out there that's a possibility.
It's a
I was
possibility.
just thinking with Gilman's revival, if his soul left his body, that means potentially his will was actually strong enough that actually in the warp he held himself throughout
Yeah.
like 10,000 years.
Well, with Gilliman though, it was only a brief moment that he was plunged in. So he got mortally wounded, put into stasis for 10,000 wounds, and he was still alive. 10,000 years, and he was
Right,
still
yeah.
alive. And then when Yvrain came, they actually killed him. Gilliman was killed by fucking Xenos, man. It's the craziest shit, and then resurrected by him. But I don't know who wrote that lore, but that's out there.
So if you're in stasis, are you like brain dead, or can you still dream and all that stuff?
No, stasis is like all time stops in theory.
It depends
or
on the
fractionally small or whatever. But
yeah, it depends on the stasis itself. I think Imperium is just like you're literally frozen in time. Trazen can choose whether someone can be frozen in time or like conscious the entire time that they're in stasis.
I
just
know, like
depends.
With
Science!
Trazens, though, it's more like an alternative reality that they're trapped in, and he can control when it's moving and when it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or that's my understanding of it, at least.
Yeah.
Well, I think it is.
And then he goes around and plays Pokemon with like Inquisitors and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think it was the end of like War in the Museum, where like one of the tech priests that he actually brings back out of stasis from his mind shackle scarabs, and then like when he's about to put him back, the tech priest says, "Leave me conscious because I want to study everything that you bring in." And then Trazen's just like, "Okay, I'll do that, but okay."
Oh man, what a way to live. Ursat says Conrad also just wants to die. He proved his point and let himself die. So yeah, I think his warp energy would be instantly devoured by the hungry monsters of the warp.
I mean, I
So
can go with that. I'm just, like I said, throwing it out there, though, that if you wanted like a big baddie that really emphasizes what Chaos Unbound represents, who better than the actual Night Hunter
But-
himself?
it's this weird thing though. Like the Night Lord's Legion represent Unbound. I don't think Conrad Kurz does, because he's not strong-willed, man. He's not about getting power. He's not about self-preservation, which is a huge thing of Unbound. Like, if he was Unbound, he would have fought his death and he would have stopped it from happening, right? So he's not Unbound. He's a little bitch, Conrad. When we go to the Iron Warriors, once again, the Legion itself is not Unbound. They don't like it. But Porto Rabo is definitely more Unbound. And that's kind of how I see it, at least. But
And that would actually make kind of interesting having Porto Rabo leading like a faction of Night Lords.
No, that would be cool to see. I love this one idea that Christian came up with, the one episode where it was the Iron Hands, they have no Primarch anymore. So they join up with the Imperial Fist when Rogel Doran comes back. And I forget the chapter that he called them, but it was this cool kind of concept of, I guess if you guys like cans and are kind of stern, we'll kind of join up with you. But yeah, the concept of like Primarchs joining other legions or leading other legions is kind of fun, because you get that like unique kind of two specialties almost,
Yeah, because you would have his tactics with their terror tactics. Like that just opens the mind up to all kinds of imagination. Like, how would that actually feel in the actual tabletop or in the lore?
Yeah. I like this comment from Ransom: a slave to his sight. Fucking great.
We got a clarification from Ursats though, like right after that. He just wants everyone to understand the Emperor was wrong. I don't think he was a bitch, just very single-minded.
Yeah. You know,
And-
typically in my book, if you let yourself get killed, you're a little bitch. But you know, I'm not God. I don't make the rules.
So yeah,
I
in
mean-
a way, I kind of do agree because it's not that like he's completely nuts in a way, but like he's. It's like, you know, when you've got that friend that's like he's a button, like that adamant to prove it, and it like becomes their obsession to prove that like someone's not who they say they are. That's the sort of vibe I get from it.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Like he literally throws away his life in theory, like just to prove that like the emperor was out to kill him the whole time. Which there's
hey, buddy, you could have just been good and he wouldn't have killed you.
right. There's
Try
like
murdering
there's something there's something that me and Jax talked about a little while ago that like there's I think I've been told that in the story there's no like complete confirmation that he's actually died. It's like someone basically reporting it, sort of thing. And I was like wondering because there's moments when you look at the people that Trazan's captured that don't even know that they got captured in the first place. And like in the Fall of Cadia, he throws out his Tesseract Pokeball and lets out this squad of Ultramarines like that were part of the whole Calf massacre that never got to the Siege of Terror. They don't know they don't know the outcome of the siege, and when they first see Abaddon, they think it's Horus.
Yeah, crazy.
And I'm like, I'm wondering if there's like, you know, like that split second just as Kurz was actually about to die. There's like, nope, man. And like
That would be
somewhere in like one of
interesting.
his vaults, there's literally Trazan just like I'll let you out one day, my child, just not now. Because there are quite a few things that he captures that is like, I want it. I'm never releasing it again because it'll be a bad thing for me if I do. Which Inquisitor Greyfax is one of those. Is like he says to Crawl, if I release her, you do realize she's never gonna stop being her. And like it's like almost fearful to
Women.
let her out because he knows that like of all the Inquisitors, she's got that burning desire to be her. Like she will even like throw other Inquisitors under the bus to like just do her duty, and it's not like because of her ambition, it's just her like honor of duty is just that high.
Yeah, crazy.
Where would you place Call in the whole, like, because Call uses technology in the warp, and arguably he's all about glorifying himself.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
So I'm starting to see things in terms of like, you know, like the morality scale in D&D. So you have like your allegiance to like good and evil against like your personality sort of thing. And I think he would come under like chaotic good. Like he wants to do good for the Imperium, but he doesn't care how he achieves it.
Yeah.
So
like, I think like yes, he probably has a bit of an ego, but I think Lupercal, you're right. It's like it's still focused towards the betterment of, at the very least, the Mechanicum, if not the Imperium.
Yeah.
So then you would still keep him kind of outside of that whole Unbound then, because he's still arguably trying to support the bigger picture.
Yeah, and like it's such a hard line, you know, like what do you really have to do? What kind of warp practices do you have to do? Was he infusing people with stuff? What was he doing exactly that we know of? Was it just the Astartes program? Because that in my mind is not any warp shenanigans. But honestly, I don't know much about Call. I think he's another stupid character that came out in the last 5 years that shouldn't exist.
I mean, Alpha Primus is a very intriguing character, and that's, as Call puts it, is his son. And there's all kinds of shenanigans that's going on with that, with the creation of Alpha Primus.
Yeah, he's like super amped up, like on steroids. Astartes on steroids, but
Bio even made the comment that he was impressed by Alpha Primus, and for Bio to be like, "Oh, I'm impressed by anything that you could make that's arguably related to the Astartes and not his new man project. That's one hell of a compliment to get from Bile.
Yeah, and speaking of Bile,
Mhm.
maybe Bile is a good example of Unbound. Very good example.
Yeah.
He's definitely not serving any gods. He's definitely doing all types of weird warp shenanigan type things when he's making the new man or whatever other creations he has. So yeah, he would be a good kind of fit, I think.
And in current
So
tabletop,
could you-
he gets sectioned undivided, so it kind of it wouldn't be a massive leap to go between Unbound to Undivided in characters that
Mhm.
already exist.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And could Bile be the big baddie then at that point?
Bile has the potential to be a big baddie whenever he wants, in theory. Even before like the period that we're in now, he manages to clone like half of the Primarchs, and not just like to what they were as they were sort of thing. He manages to like clone Logar into a child form, and he
Fuck.
recreates Fulgrim in his untainted form to a level that he fears that the soul in the clone Fulgrim will fall to chaos. His clone of Horus remembers like when he's face to face with Abaddon, and Abaddon's like got his claw. He goes, "Oh, you brought me my weapon," sort of thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
So he has got some very, very like it's written that he's like very, very adept above any other biologist. And I did kind of find it interesting that they went down the lines of like to speed things up, Bile's gonna steal Crawl's fucking research. Like, come here, give me this.
Yeah. And then
Man,
you
I
got
like the
people
reasoning
like the
too that-
Yellow King. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I like the reasoning too that Bile does stuff like cloning the Primarchs, like all this crazy stuff. It wasn't for any grand plan like Abaddon and his Great Crusades. It was literally just because I felt like it. I just wanted to do it.
Yeah, to just prove that he could. That's enough
Yeah.
sometimes. That's
And-
Unbound mindset, I think, really.
It's
Yeah, so
very
Bile-
much an Unbound mindset, especially when you look at his ego is at a level that is like, the Emperor's not better than me. I can do it and more. And
Yeah.
actually go like even in the Great Crusade is at it already. Like it's like the Emperor thinks this design's perfect. I'll show him perfect, and like
I'll show him
you're
perfect. This guy can shoot lasers out of his eyes now.
this guy can scream a palace down. Like okay,
So then
Perfection.
Bile as a individual would be a good representative for Unbound. Not necessarily the big baddie for him, but if you're looking for an individual that can represent Unbound, you would probably go with Bile over anybody else.
potentially, yeah.
You
Yeah,
can
I
make
don't
an
know
argument
about
for that.
over anyone else, but yeah, definitely a high contender for sure, I think.
Who would you say would be a better contender than him?
Yeah, I would have to really think about it.
I mean, that's what I'm here for, is ask you the provoking questions.
Yeah. Yeah, like, okay, so we've mentioned Perturabo a couple times, so let's just do that matchup, him or Bile. I think Bile probably represents Unbound better, so, than Perturabo.
I think
Right.
in representation, yes, but in terms of like power, it'll probably go down the line of. I just saw that comment out of the corner of my eyes. Bo probably no.
That guy needs to be bound, I think.
He's the direct opposite of Chaos Unbound. He's like that Chaos Bound that like you step back before it corrupts me. I don't want to be a Nurgle demon.
Yeah. Well, I have no other examples that come to the top of my head, honestly. You know, we're 2 hours into this one. Maybe we episode 43.7.5.
Okay, here's an idea that might be something. That greater demon, that short story that we were talking about earlier with the Chaos Gods were like, we don't know what this is. We're gonna leave it alone. What if that was just a lesser demon of something else?
Oof.
That puts a twist on it. And then what would be a lesser demon of? Because arguably, it's all mixed up, but arguably the Chaos Gods have been around since the dawn of time, haven't they?
Yeah, with warp time shenanigans. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, The lore is
With warp
confusing a little
time,
bit when it gets to that, but it
Mhm.
feels
so
like
with
they've
warp
been.
time, it's kind of once it exists back and forth sort of thing, because like the
Mhm.
time in the warp doesn't flow in a linear direction, and you could
Yep.
literally be like, if you looked at it as pages of a book, like where you're stood now could literally be in like time wise in the warp to the side by side to an event that you experienced like 50 years ago, and
Mhm.
So it,
like the push between those two is literally like, oh god, what? How did I jump like 50 years out of nowhere?
Mhm.
would that mean the Dark King has always existed within the warp, just not necessarily within the mortal plane?
Essentially, yeah. Basically, the way it come across to me was that that all the gods already know of the Dark King, and there is like textbooks that go back 5,000 years of a prophecy of the Dark King, because once he existed, it was
Mhm.
it's like an echo shot through time, and
Yep.
you like it's anything up to that point is like the lead up to it, but it's being controlled by him. Like his existence forces his existence again and again and again.
Mhm.
And then
Or
like
even
this
something
came
like,
out. What?
or even something like Slanesh. As much as I hate giving them lip service, like we know for a fact. We know for a fact that like the Eldar birthed it in like what 2025K, but because now that she, it exists, it has always existed in some way, shape, or form, just like what Luke was talking about with the Dark King. So we have that confirmation, like they're the newest Chaos God, yet it's always existed as well.
Yeah.
Well, and
The
then
sea-
what?
For the birth of Slanesh, like after the birth, it like sent like back an echo that created a herald that led to the birth of Slanesh. So it like created its own paradox of creation that will always loop around.
Yeah.
The thing is, they came out with that new Custodes book about Dox, and was talking about how the Golden Throne that we know of is more of like the Wizard of Oz, and the actual throne is actually hidden in some secret chamber. And Dox got the impression that the Emperor is nothing more than like more of a nightmarish creature that's consuming uh, like thousands of souls, not so much a day, but now by the minute. And like all he is arguably, if you want to say living, I don't know if you can call that, because even he says, I don't know if the Emperor is dead or undead, but he feels like the whole thing that the Emperor, the only thing he's after now is just the consumption of souls, like some nightmarish creature.
That's
And to me seems like
disturbing.
another ego driven thing where the Emperor is no longer caring about so much saving humanity. Now he wants to just devour humanity.
Oof. Yeah.
That's
That
kind
would
of
be a
also
really
touched
good.
on. That's also kind of touched on with the Indomitus Crusade when Gilliman actually goes to see the Emperor for the first time. There's like the essence of the man he used to be, and the essence of the drive that he is now, and it like is like my son, my last tool, my faithful son, my only tool. Like everything that is saying to Gilliman, it's doubled. Like it's like he's hitting him with both sides of it. Like there's something inside the Emperor fighting against itself of who's actually going to have control in the end.
Yep. Is it going to be the darker, or is he going to be the salvation or a damnation of humanity?
Either way, he'll be our daddy. We can count on that. Yeah. What a fun episode, boys. Any closing thoughts there, Alpha Primus?
Subscribe to the Patreon. Buy yourself a mini to be immortalized in plastic, like Grimdala said.
Yes.
Keep up the great work.
Calls. Yeah, will do. Thanks for calling in. And then there were 3. Well, boys, thanks for coming on this journey with me. I think we really did something that the Lorehammer community as a whole can be proud of, and hopefully force on GW to get this Unbound concept. Like, solidified, man. Like it's there. It's there. We just need it to be written now, GW. And I've already written it for you, so get after it.
And give us more minis that we can customize.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, great episode. We'll do some closing shout outs here. Like I said, come listen to the Lorehammer Listener Lore podcast. Man, I haven't recorded in so long, but there's like 200 episodes out. So there's quite a big backlog. If you haven't listened to any of it yet, go check out the Lorehammer Listener Lore podcast and listen to some homebrew lore that I read.
And then come on over and listen to Grim Lore, where my co-host and I talk about Warhammer Fantasy and some Age of Sigmar. And we don't have as much of a backlog as Listener Lore, but we've been on hiatus for a while too. But yeah, come check us out if you want to hear the fantasy side of things. And we also do talk about Chaos in there as well. So
I like that one episode that we did together, Grim Lore and Lorehammer, about the differences of Chaos and stuff. Very fun, that one.
that was a fun one.
Yeah. And then the final shout out is to Lupercal himself. Dude, you're editing these Lorehammer episodes, and I think every listener owes you a round of applause, honestly. Like it's a burden that without you the show wouldn't exist. So dude, hats off to you. Thank you so much for helping me and helping keep the show going.
Yeah, man, no worries. One thing I do want to say is something that from what we've noticed in the Discord. For all those Patreon members that are members of the Discord, if you don't have your Imperial Tithe role, make sure to reach out to one of the law helpers and like they will get you role so that you can see the live link when we go live and join in with more of the chats that we have and like actually embrace the craziness and shenanigans that is that Imperial Tithe channel.
Yeah. Grim said I should at everyone and just say, hey, if you don't have your tags, let me know. And I'm like, I should, but then I get angry messages from people saying, why you adding me? But fuck those people.
Yeah.
The tithers are the ones who are paying. I need to keep them happy.
Right.
Yeah.
Bro, it's your Discord. If anyone's allowed to add everyone, it's you.
Listen, I just live there, okay? I don't work there or nothing. I just fucking hang out. All right, well, that's an episode of Lorehammer. Next episode is on Friday, and it is episode 200. We got Christian, we got Jordan, we got Gerald, we got no episode notes, so it's going to be a fun episode. Hope you guys join us, and see you all on the 200th episode. Adios.